Who are you?
Where do I start? I've got a few screws loose, but I'm a lessee, same as you. Difference being, I wasn't born on Cocoon.
Hey everyone, Wandering Bard here, back with another character analysis. With the release of Final Fantasy XVI just around the corner, I wanted to tie things up for Final Fantasy XIII with an analysis of our dear old friend Erba Yoon Fang. This video promises to be interesting. Those of you who've watched my Lightning Returns videos may recall a time when I dropped this hot take on my viewers.
Honestly, I'm gonna give a hot take here. I think Fang is from a character standpoint, not from like a usefulness in game standpoint. Fang is the worst character in Final Fantasy XIII. There, I said it. That's my hot take. Fang is the worst character in Final Fantasy XIII.
And as much as I stand by that take, and apparently up to 56% of Wandering Bard gaming viewers could possibly agree with it, I don't want this video to be a derogatory snarkfest about her character, because I don't enjoy watching it when other people make videos like that, and I don't want to ask you to watch one any more than I feel like making one. So what I'm going to do is analyze Fang with respect to her conflict, her placement in the game, and her relationships with the rest of the cast, and how all of these things kind of blend together. I'm going to discuss what I think the writers were trying to do with her character, why it doesn't really work for me personally, and how I feel her arc could have been improved. Naturally, this will all be my opinion, so if y'all have a different one, please drop it in the comment section. I've really enjoyed getting to have dialogue with y'all in my previous videos, and so I'd love to have more on this one too. I only ask that we all be respectful in the comment section discussing this, as I'm trying to be respectful in how I make this video. Please also do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already, because it turns out that only 18% of Wandering Bard gaming viewers are subbed, and the support really means a lot, especially if you are already clicking on and hopefully enjoying my videos anyway. I really hope you enjoy this one too. Let's get into it.
Let's give up. Forget our focus. We don't need it.
We don't need it? Look, if we don't figure it out and pull it off, you're gonna be a Seath.
It's just making a kid that young a lessee. It's not right.
Yeah, it's unfair. But guess what? We grin and bear it like good lessee, or the Falsey starts making more. Like that girl the other day.
So one of the important things about story that I learned from my writing teacher Daniel Schwabauer is that stories are driven by change and by growth, and both of these things come through conflict. And the short version of my issue with Fang's writing is that she has almost zero conflict. Almost is an acting word here, and I'll get to that in a little while, but first I want to break down why it is that she has so little conflict, especially in comparison with the rest of the party. There are two primary conflicts that the rest of the group struggles with across their journey, the first one being limited time. For the first roughly 2/3 of the game, most of the party doesn't know that lessee who complete their focus and turn to crystal are in fact not dead and can reawaken from stasis. Vanille, who has already reawakened once from crystal, does know this, but for reasons pertaining to her backstory, she does not inform the rest of the party. For this reason, they don't worry much about their focus in the beginning, since as far as they're concerned, they are doomed whether they complete it or not. The question each of them faces is, how will they spend what little time they have left? What do they live or stand for? Once they learn that crystallized lessee can reawaken, they give more regard to their focus, which brings up the other main source of conflict, which is that their focus is to destroy millions of lives by becoming Ragnarok and laying waste to Cocoon. For many of them, Cocoon is home, and even Vanille, who is raised on Grand Pulse, balks at the idea of sacrificing millions to save her own skin. They have to decide how much they're willing to sacrifice to save themselves, and ultimately, they choose to fight for what they believe in, even when Cocoon seems doomed anyway. In Fang's case, though, neither of these conflicts apply to her. She's not even around for the first half of the game, and even if she had been, it wouldn't have mattered, because she, like Vanille, already knows that crystallized lessee can reawaken. Her not being around does pose a problem for her character development, which I'll get to later, but for now, understand that the main source of conflict for Fang would have been the moral dilemma over her focus. Except that, for reasons pertaining to her backstory, she doesn't have a dilemma. She's determined to see her focus through from the get-go.
We woke up on Cocoon to the start of a new focus. Fang, she'd forgotten everything.
So I covered this a bit when I did the Vanille video because Vanille and Fang are adoptive sisters, but the short version is that they were branded together as l'Cie during the War of Transgression way back when, and they were given the joint focus of becoming Ragnarok and destroying Cocoon. Vanille was too compassionate for the job, so Fang tried to do it alone, becoming an incomplete, weak version of Ragnarok and scarring Cocoon's outer shell. Due to the intervention of the goddess, she wasn't able to get further than that, and so she and Vanille were taken up to Cocoon alongside the fal'Cie anima as crystals. When Fang and Vanille reawaken, though, Fang has lost all memory of things pertaining to her focus, which Vanille took advantage of to avoid hurting more people. But the other thing that was different was Fang's brand. It's been changed, scorched white, and no longer progresses toward becoming a Seath like the others do. Given that this happens to the rest of the party after the goddess rescues them from their fate as Seath, we can conclude that this was due to Fang being drained of strength after becoming Ragnarok. So as a result, Fang's personal stake in her focus has nothing to do with her own fate. She wants to complete it to save Vanille's life.
Pulse and Cocoon can rot for all I care. If I don't figure out our focus soon, Vanille's gonna be a Seath. I'll tear down the sky if it'll save her.
The thing is, despite these apparent differences in her situation, Fang's lot actually isn't that different from the rest of the cast. Lightning, Snow, Saz, and Hope all have people they want to be reunited with after their journey is over, which can only happen if they complete their focus and turn to crystal, and they have to weigh their own lives and their loved ones against millions of innocent people. The difference is that Fang was the only person willing to make that trade. There's no cost she won't pay to save Vanille, and that's actually a problem from both the standpoint of being a good person and for her growth as a character. Because while Fang faces plenty of external roadblocks that could prevent her from reaching her goal, notably not remembering what her focus is and then being separated from Vanille, she doesn't face the same internal dilemmas that the others do, and so nothing about her situation spurs any kind of growth. The others are caught between protecting the masses and saving themselves, with sacrifices being made no matter what they choose, and that dilemma pushes them emotionally, especially when they reach a situation where it seems that Cocoon is doomed no matter what they do. But Fang doesn't have a dilemma. She has a mission statement which is, screw the rest of the world, I'm doing this for Vanille. From her point of view, she can save herself and what she loves most without having to make any personal sacrifice. So her only conflict now is all the Sanctum troops standing between her and Orphan, which is again an external struggle. The only other thing that might have resulted in some character growth for her would have been good, healthy relationships, and, well, she doesn't have those either.
The twin sisters. I gotta hand it to you for taking them down, but don't gloat just yet. Might come a time you wish you'd let them end it, and made things easy.
So this scene where we first meet Fang is right at the end of Chapter 3. The game has 12 story chapters, and Fang isn't made playable until partway through Chapter 7. Between when she's introduced and when she's made playable, we see her in exactly 2 short cutscenes, so she really has no presence in the story until Chapter 7. Given that Fang is also absent from Chapter 8 since that's the Nautilus chapter with Saz and Vanille, she basically missed the first half of the game. Now, a character being missing for a lot of the game isn't necessarily a problem, but it leads into problems here when we start talking about relationships, since the chapters that Fang missed were ones where a lot of crucial relationships were established between cast members. Notable ones that I want to highlight are Lightning and Snow, Lightning and Hope, Snow and Hope, and Saz and Vanille. When I was analyzing Saz's character, I talked about the value of relationships from a motivational perspective. In Saz's case, since his only strong relationship with the rest of the cast was with Vanille, he had little place in the sequels and little range of motivation when he was included. Saz's relationship with Vanille was fantastic in 13 though, since it added more depth to its arc and shaped its growth, which is true for all the relationships I just highlighted, and for healthy relationships in general. This is another thing that I picked up from watching Cinema Therapy, is that one of the main traits in healthy relationships is when the people involved can accept influence from each other. And this is actually demonstrated in all the relationships that I just highlighted. For example, Hope gives Lightning an outside view of her situation by traveling with her, and forces her to dig down to the roots of her emotions. And in turn, Lightning acts as a mentor figure for Hope and tries to guide him on the correct path. Vanille gives Saz someone to open up to and helps him find hope again, and Saz in turn adds more to Vanille's guilt and forces her to confront her sins. Snow and Hope force each other to confront their grief and guilt respectively over the death of Nora S-Slime, and Snow and Lightning encourage each other to stay strong in the face of despair. They all promote each other's growth in ways that are meaningful. Looking now at Fang, she's like Saz in that she only has one notable relationship, which is also with Vanille. And because Fang's goal is so strictly Vanille-centered, she's the only person that Fang focuses on, really. Like, yeah, she has her moments with Saz and Lightning, and presumably with Snow too off-screen, because how else would Snow know that she was once a crystal? But Fang's priority throughout the game was helping Vanille, and Vanille is the main person she bonds with.
Poor kid. You've had it rough.
Fang.
Listen, you're not alone anymore.
I'm so sorry.
The difference between Saz and Fang, though, is that, unlike Saz, Fang doesn't accept influence from Vanille, or from anyone for that matter. They may be sisters, and Fang is certainly gentler with her, but the way that Fang talks to and treats Vanille is much like an older sister to a younger one, or even akin to a mother-daughter relationship at times. Fang takes the lead role in situations they're involved in, she holds Vanille accountable for lying to her, and overall the dynamic is very unequal in that it's focused almost entirely on Vanille. And since Fang doesn't really bond with the rest of the cast, there's really nobody to hold her accountable to anything or to encourage her to grow. So she just doesn't.
You don't have the nerve for it. I'll do it myself. Go on alone. Get stronger. And smash Cocoon out of the sky!
Fang!
You turn Seath and there's no coming back! I'm not... letting it end that way!
The one thing that potentially makes this entire argument fall apart is that in this scene, when Fang first announces her intention to go off on her own to complete her focus, her Eidolon, Bahamut, appears, which only happens when Lassie is broken in spirit or facing a deep internal conflict. So it's possible that, in this moment, she is not fully sold on the idea of destroying the world. And after this scene, she does agree to stick with the rest of the party, but that seems to be mainly because they defend her when Bahamut attacks. They also do convince her to help them search for a way to remove their brands, but I'd argue that's because removing their brands serves the same purpose ultimately as completing her focus, because it still saves Vanille. Maybe part of her wanted an out that wouldn't involve killing millions, which is why her Eidolon appeared when it did, but her goal is still to save Vanille, and so she's willing to accept influence from the party as long as they're still moving toward that goal. But the moment that push comes to shove, she goes right back to, I must complete my focus.
Ereba's right down there then, isn't it?
Yep.
So what's it like?
Well, it's kind of small, but it's warm and green and very naturey.
Around the Foul Sea, it was flowers as far as you could see, huh?
View from here? Ain't so rosy, I'm sorry to say.
You want to wait here?
No. I need to see for myself. It's all gone.
Every trace of color. We're chasing shadows. This whole idea of losing our brands is hopeless.
There's
Like, look
gotta
at the
be-
difference in their reactions here. The rest of the party here has matured from their journey and they hold on to hope for a way out. And even when that hope is later proven false, they still hold on to their values and they resolve to do whatever they can to help people, even at cost of their own lives. But Fang immediately loses hope upon seeing the state of her village, and in the pivotal moment when fighting Bartandela/Orphan, Fang breaks down and decides to destroy Orphan, even though that demolishes everything Vanille and the rest of the party have been fighting for. Because ultimately, Fang is willing to sacrifice millions for Vanille, even when Vanille doesn't want her to. She's even willing to attack Vanille in the name of reaching her goal, and only shows regret when it's too late and the rest of the party have become Seath.
Guess I deserve it. After what I did. Are they my sin to bear for choosing salvation?
Please, stop!
Now, I don't think that her willingness to destroy Orphan here necessarily negates her indecision over it back when her Eidolon appeared. Things have happened since then. Notably, she saw her village destroyed and she and her friends were suffering at Orphan's hands. But it is a little upsetting for me that when push comes to shove, she goes right back to her focus and abandons any growth or influence she might have received from her journey with the others. I feel like what the writers were trying to do for her character was to have her serve as a foil to the rest of the cast. She keeps Snow's over-eagerness in check, but she's also more easygoing to balance Lightning's stoicism, and she obviously acts as Vanille's counterpart. Her determination to complete her focus also stands in stark contrast to the other characters' denial of it. What I feel the problem is that we don't get a good sense of progression or growth from her, and that stands in stark contrast also with the rest of the team, just not in a good way in my opinion. What I think could have been done to improve her writing while still staying as true as possible to her character would have been to have her not be totally bent on completing her focus at first. Like, have her want to do it to help Vanille, but be willing at first to accept Vanille's wishes to prioritize the masses above herself. But then, over time, as she sees the hatred of Cocoon's citizens, the destruction of her village, and the raging war on Cocoon, her hope is worn down until she believes that Cocoon cannot and should not be saved, and then in the pivotal moment she decides to complete her focus. That would have been more satisfying to me because it would have given her a proper arc, one that still stood in contrast to the rest of the team, and her choice to destroy Cocoon would have been shocking and meaningful, rather than having it be her entire goal from the beginning. And the thing is, quite a few scenes in this game lend themselves to exactly this type of arc. Notably going back to the scene near Erebor where we first see her hope crumble. So maybe that's what the writers were going for all along. The reason it doesn't work for me is that because completing her focus was her goal from the beginning, it feels more like her falling back on what she knows rather than a downward arc, and so her writing feels flat compared to the others. And so that's why, in that stream clip I showed you, I did choose to call her the worst character in the original Final Fantasy XIII. The irony is that I actually didn't mind her nearly so much in Lightning Returns, despite her writing having a lot of the same traits that I just complained about in that game too. Part of it is likely because I was used to Fang at that point, but also because my expectations for a character are different in that game. In Final Fantasy XIII, all of the party were in basically the same situation as Lassie, so Fang's lack of growth and conflict stuck out like a sore thumb next to the others. But in Lightning Returns, her situation is very different. She's been dreaming in Crystal with Vanille up until about 13 years before the events of the game, so she hasn't been suffering in chaos for centuries like the others have. She also cannot hear the voices of the dead like Vanille can, so her lot's pretty light this time around. She just wants to help Vanille. And unlike my complaints about Saz, Fang trying to save Vanille again in this game doesn't feel as stale to me because Fang and Vanille hardly appeared in 13-2, so we haven't gotten 3 games in a row of Fang trying to save Vanille like we had with Saz and Dodge. What we got of those two in 13-2 was different enough that we don't feel like we're on the same old track by the time we get to Lightning Returns. Vanille's plight in Lightning Returns is also very different and much more personal to us as players from playing 13, so that helps too. Ultimately, Fang just never changes. To me, this doesn't work so well for Fang as a protagonist, especially when character growth through conflict is such a crucial part of how the other characters were written, but it works fine for a side role. And Fang is also a cool person, apart from the whole being willing to kill millions to save one person bit. That was, less cool. Nevertheless, that brings me to the end of this video and to the end of my analyses of the Final Fantasy XIII main cast. I really hope y'all enjoyed these. I had a lot of fun making them, and I am planning to do more analyses for the 13-2 cast and the much anticipated Final Fantasy XVI. So please remember to hit the like button if you enjoyed, sub to the channel to see more videos as they come out, and yeah, have a good one. I'll see you next time.